Greetings and welcome to this course overview for Ethical Hacking Capture the Flag exercises. I'm Professor K, and I will be your instructor for the entire course. So let's go ahead and get started. The course overview is what we're going to be looking at here, and we're going to talk about what this course offers and who should be taking it and how to get the most from it. We're going to look at how to build that virtual network, which you should already know how to do. If you come to this course, then you should already know how to create a virtual install of Kali Linux, and I shouldn't have to reiterate it. But I know there's going to be some people who want to set the world on fire with their hacking skills, and they're just going to forget all about taking the ethical hacking courses and learning the fundamentals and just jump right into trying to be a pen tester or a hacker. Good luck with that. Setting up the virtual lab environment, we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how to get the most from the course. All right, so why is Module 01 so important? Because if you can't set up a virtual machine, then you can't complete the course. All right, so it's very important that you go through Module 01 and create that virtual install of Kali, and that you know how to download the OVA files for each of the CTFs, capture the flag exercises, and install or create a virtual install of that target machine. Now you're going to need to take it slow and steady through the course. If you try to blow through it, all you're going to experience is epic failure. So make sure you watch the videos and read the lab from start to finish. Do not skip through the labs. If you have to put your finger on every word of every sentence as you read, that's what you got to do. But do not skip, right? You can call or post a question if you have any issues, and I'll be glad to help you out. You got one virtual install of Kali, and then you're going to have to download and install the OVA file as a virtual machine for each of the CTFs. Each virtual machine should have a minimum of 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now I say that because you're going to need RAM to run your host operating system. You can't just have 2 gigabytes of RAM and assign it to your virtual machine and expect to have any level of performance. Host machines running Windows 7, 8, or 10 or better are preferred. You're also going to need a CPU and a BIOS capable of hardware virtualization. So if you come to this course with a Hello Kitty laptop, don't expect to be able to create your virtual machine or participate with the hands-on labs. Emulation programs that you can use: VMware, VirtualBox, Hyper-V, and there are others. I'm going to show you how I use VMware and VirtualBox. Most of the CTFs in this course, if not all of them, were created with VirtualBox because it was trouble-free. I downloaded VirtualBox as per most of the instructions for each of the CTFs that I found. Now, if you want to use VMware, that's fine, but you may have problems. I suggest VirtualBox, but you can use VMware. You're just going to have to troubleshoot it and figure out why the OVA file may not want to play nice. So VMware Workstation comes in 2 different flavors. You've got the free version and you got the pro version. Either one, right? And then you can use either to create your OVA and your install of Kali Linux. Again, I like VirtualBox for this particular course. On most of my courses, I don't use VirtualBox. I use VMware. But I've gotten to the point now where this VirtualBox is actually becoming very well designed, and it was a pretty much trouble-free experience using it to build this course. So word to the wise, if the virtual install of the OVA file works best with VirtualBox, don't fight it, just go with it. So what else you need for this course? Well, you need buy-in. You need to come to this course with a realization and an understanding that you're only going to get what you put out. All right, so if you come to the course thinking that you're going to be able to set the world on fire without having the fundamentals, the basic knowledge of what a port is or how services are or how to read an Nmap scan result, then you're not going to be able to take away as much as you would like. It's going to be a real struggle. So I suggest that if you've not taken an ethical hacking course, that you go find one and sit it first and get the fundamentals before you learn how to capture flags. Well, that's all I got for you. So if you have any questions or you have any concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor, and I'll see everyone up inside of the course room. Thank you. Greetings and welcome to this short video presentation where we go about creating a virtual install of Kali using VMware. Allow me to give you a caveat for this lab. From time to time, things change with open source. Things change with the third-party vendors who provide us with the VMware player or even workstation. These applications, these procedures get updated quite regularly. I don't always know when those updates occur unless someone tells me. When I find out that the updates have happened, I get in, I rewrite the labs, I rebuild the videos. And this is an instance of where this is happening right now. I am rewriting the lab and I am rewriting the video because I know that things have changed. When we need to download something, we can go into the lab where the links will be provided for you. In this case, we need to download VMware Player. Now, there's one of two versions you can download. You can download the free player or you can download the workstation. The free player is, as it says, it's free. The workstation version costs about $250. Let's go take a look at that. Again, this link is provided in the lab. All you have to do is right-click on it, hit your control key, and it'll take you right out to the same site. So let's take a look at that real quick. The VMware player is located up here inside of the VMware.com site, and there's also a link here for the Workstation Pro. Now the difference is this: the Workstation player is free, and it doesn't come with all the bells and whistles of the Workstation Pro, but it's just as good. The Workstation Pro costs $250. It comes with a 14-day free trial. Once that trial expires, those virtual machines are no longer going to work. So, I advise you, if you're not going to buy the Workstation Pro, to use the free player. Now you have two versions. You have the Workstation for Windows, you have the Workstation Player for Linux. There is not a VMware player per se for a Mac. For Macs, we have to use VirtualBox. Once you have VMware Player installed, you're then ready to begin the download process for your image. I use a tool to download my images because it makes it much quicker. The tool I use is called Free Download Manager. There is a link in the lab also for the Free Download Manager. It allows you to download much quicker, but it also allows you to restart if your download becomes interrupted. Now these downloads are rather big. As you can see, the image for Kali, the 64-bit image, is 2.7 gigs. If you get almost done and your internet drops and you don't have a download manager, you will have to restart from the beginning. So that's why I like using a free download manager, and I'll show you how to do this in just a minute. So the download manager I have is already installed and it's already up and running. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go out and we're going to visit the offensive security site and get our image. So here we go. So I'm out here on offensive security, and we have a number of images we can download. But one of those images is the VMware. We have images for VirtualBox and Hyper-V. Now I'm interested in the 64-bit version, and I can get the torrent or I can get the straight download. We're downloading an OVA file that is just a disk image with all the supporting files that we need to run Kali without having to step through an install procedure. Once the download is complete, all we have to do is just import the image. There's nothing I have to do to install Kali. It's already pre-installed. All I'm doing is importing the image, and when I get done importing the image, I'm given a logon. I log in, I give it the password, and we're good to go. So let's see how this works. So I want the free download manager to handle this. So I'm going to right click on my torrent and I'm going to go to copy the link location. I'm now going to bring up my download manager. This is what it looks like. If I click on the plus sign, you'll notice that that link that I copied went to my clipboard and my download manager picked it up. So if I say OK, it's going to now configure and begin the download. I can go ahead and say download to all this, and now the download begins. You'll notice that the time that it takes to download starts to drop rather quickly, and it should end up with just about 27 minutes or so. That's another advantage of using the download manager. That is the time that it takes to download. My download is complete. I can now go to the download location for my image of Kali for VMware. I'm going to browse to it. When I get to it, I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to select open with either the VMware player or the workstation. Either one, both of them use the same wizard. So I'm going to go ahead and select a VMware workstation. So I click on that, and in just a moment I get this screen right here, or this window asking me what I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and import. It takes just a few minutes and the Kali image will be imported. Now once the machine has completed its importation into the workstation, I can go ahead and click on the option to power on this virtual machine. And in just a moment, Kali is going to boot up. And I can go ahead and click in here and hit enter. Kali quickly boots up to my logon screen, and the username I'm going to use is root. Hit enter, and the password is Tor, root spelt backwards. In just a moment, I'll have a Kali Linux desktop. Kali has completed logging on. Now I want to stop Kali from logging me off after 5 minutes of inactivity. Now to do this, I'm going to go up here to the power button. I'm going to click on the system utilities, and I'm going to scroll down till I come to power. Over here on the right, I'm going to pull down this window, and I'm going to select where it says never. I'm just going to close this out, and that will stop Kali from logging me off after 5 minutes of inactivity. Now, though this is a virtual machine, it is an actual operating system, and it must be treated as if it was a physical machine. So with that being said, you cannot just arbitrarily go up here to the corner and power off the operating system by clicking on the X and selecting to power off. That's not how you shut down the operating system. You have to shut it down gracefully as if it was a physical machine. So we go to the power button, over to the upper right, scroll down here to the next power button, click on that, and you have the option to either power off, restart, or cancel. When you download the Kali image, all you get is the default installation package. You do not get all the packages or the latest and the greatest updates from the Kali repositories. To do that, we have to open a terminal. I'm going to go over here to the quick launch, and this is my terminal. I'm going to click that, and now the terminal opens up. Inside of the prompt here, I'm going to type in app space get space update ampersand space app dash get upgrade dash y, and the dash y just answers the question, do you want to continue? I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Once the update procedure begins, Kali goes out and finds the latest updates from its repositories. Do be patient with these updates. They can take some time. So if you got something else to do, this is a great time to go do it. With the new Kali images, the VMware tools come pre-installed, so there's no need to worry about that. In this short video presentation, we saw how we go about building a Kali image using a OVA file downloaded from Offensive Security's site. If you have any questions or concerns about this video, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor, and I'll see you in my next video. Greetings, and in this short video presentation we're going to see how easy it is to create a virtual machine of Kali using a pre-built image. Now the first thing we need to have on our host machine is a hypervisor. Now if you're watching this video, it's because you either can't use VMware because Windows 10 doesn't like it, or you have a Mac operating system. So we go out to the virtualbox.org site, and all these links are in the lab. So you just follow the lab and it'll give you the link to come out here and to get your download package for VirtualBox. Now once you're up here, you have to decide whether or not you're going to install VirtualBox on a Windows or an OS X or a Mac host. All right. You also have Linux and you have Solaris. All right. So once we've done that and we've installed VirtualBox, our next step is to install a free download manager. Why? Because this is a big download. And you don't want to waste time being disconnected and having to restart, and not only that, but the time that it takes to download almost 4 gigs of data can be very time consuming. I mean, this can go on for 10, maybe 12 hours just using a normal Explorer download method. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a download manager. This will manage the download for us so that if we get disconnected, we can pick up right where we left off, and it greatly speeds up the download process. So I've downloaded this one here called Free Download Manager. It's spyware, malware, adware free. No worries there. Now once we have that downloaded, we're going to go over to the Kali download site. Now once you have your software installed, you got the VirtualBox hypervisor installed, you have the Free Download Manager installed. Now we can go over to the Kali download site for the VirtualBox images. And so I'm up here at offensive-security.com, and I went to their image download site. And inside the image download site, we have a number of different images we can download. We have VMware images, we have VirtualBox, and we have Hyper-V images. So you've got 3 different hypervisors that you can deal with here. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to select the version that we need for our machine. Most of us are going to be using 64-bit. There may be an occasional 32-bit piece of hardware that shows up, but for the most part, most of us have upgraded our hardware in the last 2 or 3 years, so we're going to have 64-bit hardware. Now, we have to decide whether we want to do it through a straight download or do we want to use a torrent. Now, Free Download Manager will associate with torrent files. That's not a problem, right? So if you click on either one, it's still going to work. But I don't find much difference in the download speed or the download time with either one. So the torrent and the actual straight download work pretty much the same. So what I like to do is just right click on the download that I choose, and I'm just going to go to copy the link location like so, and I'm going to open up my download manager. I'm going to click on this plus sign up here in the left hand corner, and it actually picks it up from my clipboard for me. So now all I have to say is OK, and it goes out, requests the download, and I'm saving my download to a separate partition so that I don't fill up my C drive. Now this is all part of the properties that are available inside of the Free Download Manager. So by default, it wants to save it over to your downloads folder on your C drive, but I went ahead and moved that over to another location. So now I'm going to just click on download, and it will begin the download process very quickly, and it starts to drop the time down rapidly. So right now I'm at 13 minutes. Now again, this is a very large download, and if you do this without the download manager, expect to spend somewhere between 8 and 12 hours waiting for the download to complete. So my download has completed. So now I'm going to browse using my Explorer right here. I'm going to browse over to where this download is currently located. Now this image will automatically associate itself with a VirtualBox. So all I have to do to get this to happen is just double click it like so, and VirtualBox is going to start up and the installation process will begin. So VirtualBox pops up, and now it wants to import this image using the Import Virtual Appliance Wizard. Nothing could be easier. Okay, so all we have to do is just tell it to import it. That's all we have to say. Say import, and the import process begins. So the importation of our Kali image has completed, and there is Kali sitting in our menu waiting to be started. So let's just go ahead and highlight it and then click on the green start button. And Kali is going to start up here in just a moment. And now we have an error. Now this error is very common, so we're going to see how we go about fixing it. If we open up the details, it tells you that because the USB 2.0 controller state is part of the saved VM state, the VM cannot be started. To fix the problem, either install the Oracle VirtualBox extension pack or disable the USB 2.0 support in the VM settings. Easy enough. Close that out. Let's go into the settings, and now we're going to go into the USB, and right here it says enable USB controller. Uncheck that, say OK. Now when we go back and we try to start it, we won't have a problem. So these are just some of the things that you have to worry about sometimes with these images. For the most part, they're very painless and they work without any problems at all. So now it just wants to know which install do you want to use, and we're going to go ahead and accept the default and allow it to boot up to the Kali desktop. So be patient as Kali starts to boot up, because it looks like it may not be doing anything, but it's working. Alright, the username for Kali is root, and I'm going to hit enter. Now the password is root spelled backwards, or Tor. Now before you hit the sign on button, click on this little wheel right here, and now we can change our desktop display. By default, it wants to use the system X11, but this is problematic. So I suggest that before you have problems, you go ahead and head that off at the pass and select the GNOME. Alright? And now we just say sign in. Now what problem am I talking about? Well, there's a problem with the desktop in the Kali rollout version, in that it will close you out if you open up a terminal session. So you're sitting here at the desktop, and if you open up a terminal, it automatically logs you off. So to prevent that from happening, we just switch desktops. Now, and our next thing we want to do here is we want to go ahead and set the power option so that Kali doesn't log us off after 5 minutes of inactivity. To do this, we're just going to go over here to the top right, and we're going to pull down this menu here, and we're going to go to the settings button. Click on the settings, and now we're just going to go over to power, and from the power menu we pull down the blank screen option and we select never, and that will keep you from getting logged off. Just close it out, the X right there. Okay, now when you shut down Kali, you have to do it gracefully. You can't just go in here and click on this option right here. This is no good. This will corrupt your Kali install. Luckily it's an image. Luckily you have that image backed up someplace, so it's nothing to blow it out and to reinstall it using that image. But to prevent this from happening, we want to go ahead and make sure that we shut down gracefully. So we do that by clicking on the power button here, and we go to the power option here, and you have one of two options, either power off or restart or cancel. We're going to go ahead and cancel, and now we're going to get into the process of actually updating Kali. So I've gone ahead and made Kali full screen by just going up in here and selecting the option. I'll knock it back down again, and if I go in here and click, I can make it full screen. Now this may not work for you until you have the guest editions installed. Don't panic if it doesn't go full screen. We will get to the installation of the guest editions. Now we want to go ahead and update Kali, because there's a lot of stuff out there that we need to get before we can actually assume that Kali is ready for prime time. So if you look at the lab, underneath the section where it talks about updating your Kali install, there is a command there that says app-get space update space ampersand space app-get space upgrade space -y. Yes, welcome to Linux. This is how the command line works. Now I just copied that out of the lab, and I'm going to go back over to my terminal up inside of Kali, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say paste, and there's the command. Now this will stop you from having a lot of headaches and fat fingering the commands and getting frustrated. Just copy and paste the commands from the lab into your Kali and you won't get so frustrated. Okay, so I'm now going to go ahead and just say enter. And now Kali's going to go out, it's going to find the site that it needs so that it can update. And when we come back, we'll have an updated Kali. You have to be patient with Kali and the update process. If you're not, then you're going to corrupt the install of these updates and you're going to have to start all over again. And again, with an image, it's not a big deal. But when we get done updating Kali, we can then take a snapshot of Kali, and that will become our image. And that will include all of these updates. Now, throughout the update process, you will be prompted to make some decisions or to interact with some of these updates. This one here is for the Mac changer. So I'm going to go ahead and select yes on this one. And I'm just going to use my arrow, come on over, and say yes, and then I'm just going to hit enter. And the update process continues. Okay, so now the next interaction is with configuring another service, and it wants to say that there are services installed on your system which need to be restarted with certain libraries. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and use our arrow again, come on over to say yes, and we'll restart for us without asking. And again, the installation of the updates continues. Our next interaction here is with the configuring of the grub-PC. Just go ahead and hit enter. And now it wants to know about the grub installing devices. Just go down here and just tab on down and say OK. And continue with installing the grub. Just say yes and hit enter, and we'll continue on with the updating of Kali. So Kali has now finished updating, and we can confirm this because we are back at the root at Kali prompt. So we're going to go ahead and close out the terminal, and let's go ahead and do a graceful restart. I'm going to go up here to my start button, click on the next start button, and now I'm going to select restart. And when Kali comes back up, we'll have everything calmed down, and we should be able to proceed with installing the guest editions. Kali has restarted. I've logged back in, and I'm back to my desktop. And again, let's launch the terminal. And this time we're going to install the guest editions. So if you go to the lab, and we are on page 10, you'll see that there's a command there for sudo get app-get install VirtualBox, the guest editions. And we're just going to go ahead and right click in here, and we're going to paste that in, and we're going to say install. As soon as this gets done, we'll be right back. So the guest editions have completed their installation process, and again we are back at the root at Kali prompt, letting us know that that is the case. We're going to close out the terminal, and again we're going to do another graceful restart so that all these guest editions can properly install themselves and settle down. So the next thing we want to do before we get out of here is create a snapshot. Now, the snapshot is an image of a time when we had everything updated, we had installed the guest editions, and we have Kali exactly where we want it. And once we make this snapshot, we can then go back in and we can make any changes. If the changes happen to hose our Kali install, not to worry. We'll just restore it to the snapshot. Let's go ahead and begin. We start by going to Machine, and we're just going to click on Take a Snapshot. This pops up here, lets you know about the snapshot wizard, and you can just give it a user-friendly name. I just call mine Kali Updated. And I'm just going to put this back into the description, and I'm going to say OK to that. And now the snapshot will begin to work. And that's all there is to it. We're now going to shut down Kali, and we're going to see how we go about restoring to a snapshot. So go ahead and gracefully shut down your machine. Go over to the power button, and this time just select power off. So I'm back at the VirtualBox Manager, and if you go over here to the right, you'll see that we have a snapshot. And if you click on this, you'll see that we can bring up the current snapshot and the current state. Now if you right click on this here and you say take a snapshot or clone, you can, but you don't need to. So we right click on this and you can say restore, delete, or show details. Now if you're going to restore Kali, it's going to ask you a question. It's going to ask you if you want to take a snapshot of the current state as well, and you can just uncheck this, and now you can say restore, and this one here will become the current state. So this is going to conclude our short video presentation on how we go about creating a VirtualBox install of Kali using the pre-built image. And if you have any questions or you have any problems, please do not hesitate to contact your instructor. I'll see you in the next video. Greetings and welcome to the short video presentation where we take a walkthrough for a capture the flag exercise entitled Basic Pen Testing. This CTF is rated as Easy Beginner. This exercise contains multiple remote vulnerabilities and multiple privilege escalation vectors. The validation for this walkthrough was done on VirtualBox, which is the recommended platform, though it may also work on VMware. The hardware requirements are one installation of VirtualBox, one virtual install of Kali Linux, and one virtual install of the Basic Pen Testing OVA file, which can be downloaded from the VolN Hub on the internet, or you can use the link inside of the lab file. A couple of caveats before we get too far along. When you boot up the VM for the Basic Pen Testing OVA file, it will tell you that it could not find an adapter. You'll have to go in at that point and change the network adapter over to either bridged or NAT. The second thing is, during the installation process where you actually import the OVA, you'll have to pause and go in and uncheck the box for Enable USB Controller. That must be unchecked. As with any pen testing test that we might perform for a client, or in this case for this particular capture the flag exercise, we want to stay organized. So we're going to begin by creating a folder from which we can conduct all of our business from. And we're going to post this folder to our desktop. So I've right-clicked on my desktop and I have selected the option to create a new folder. And I'm going to call this folder Pen Testing. I'm going to go ahead and say Create. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change location up inside of our terminal over to this Pen Testing folder, from which we will run all of our commands and we will save all of our downloads. For my Kali desktop, I've opened up a terminal and I've typed in cd space desktop /pen testing. Now remember, everything inside of a Linux box is case sensitive, so make sure you add those upper and lowercase letters as you need to. And you'll notice that my prompt changes to let me know that I'm now inside of that pen testing folder. So the next thing we want to do is figure out what is the network portion of our IP address for this particular location. So if this was a new client and I wanted to know what the network IP was for this particular location, I would gather that information by using an ifconfig command from my terminal. And we'll see that the network portion of this network is 192.168.0. Now it's important that you understand whose IP address you're working with. You're not working with my IP address. You're going to work with the IP address for your network that is assigned to your installation of Kali so that you can make everything happen as it's supposed to in the lab. Do not get wrapped around the IP addresses that I'm showing you in the video or in the lab. Concern yourself only with the IP addresses associated with your devices. It's always a good thing to keep your terminal clear so that you don't have to struggle looking for the information that you're trying to find. So this next step is part of the footprinting or the enumeration of this network, and we're going to look for what devices are present. To help us discover what devices are currently present on our network, we can use a couple of different devices. Now, I like this tool called Net Discover, and I type that in, give it a space, and I type in -R, which stands for range. Then I follow that up with the range of IP addresses that I want to scan. So I want to scan for the entire subnet of 192.168.0.0, and I type in a /24 to tell it that I want it to concern itself with just that last octet. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And in just a moment it's going to come back and it's going to give me some results. NetDiscover came back and it told me that it found 3 devices sitting on my network. I have a .1, which is obviously is my firewall. Then I have a .29 and I have a .32. I believe that the .32 is my target machine. So we're going to go ahead now and fire up Nmap. And we're going to conduct a scan for what services, ports, and what the operating system is that is running on .32. Now remember, this is my network discovery, not yours. So your IP address of your target will differ. So I've typed in Nmap space, and I want to know what services are running, so I'm going to use the small letter S, capital S, space -AT4, which is going to tell me what the operating system is that is running on .32. So let's go ahead and hit enter. My Nmap scan has completed, and now we can go over the results real quick and see what we got. I show that I have 3 services running on my target. I have an FTP server called Pro FTPD. I also have OpenSSH running, and I also have an Apache server running on Ubuntu. So we know a couple of things here. First off, that this is going to be a Linux target. And if we go down a little bit further, we'll get some OS details. And in here, you can see that I'm running a Linux version 3.2 to somewhere between that and 4.9. Alright, so we got a lot of good information here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with looking at what exploits we can get at with this machine. So it's important that we pay attention to these results back from the Nmap scan, because this is what's going to give us our path and our information that we can use to try to exploit our target. So we see that we have port 21 running an FTP server. Well, what's important here is what version of an FTP server it is running and the version of the software. That's what's going to tell us if there is an exploit available. And the same thing with SSH. So we see that OpenSSH version 7.2 P2 is running on Ubuntu. And we also see that we have an Apache server running, and its version is 2.4.18. This is all good information because we're going to use this hopefully to figure out how to exploit this target. I like to rate my exploits or my potential for exploits in order. So I always go after the low-hanging fruit first. In this case, I want to do a NICTO scan of the target. I want to find out more information about what files, folders, and services are actually running on this particular web server. So I'm going to use NICTO, and I've typed in space-host followed by the IP of the host that I want to scan. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Give it a moment. It'll come back with some good results. Our NICTO scan has completed, and now we can go over the information real quick. We see that there's a lot of good information here. We've got some server leaks on some of the inodes via the e-tags. This is often a vulnerability within itself. But if we scroll down here a little bit, we find that there's a folder, and it's called this secret folder right here. This might be interesting, it tells us. So we're going to remember this. We're going to come back to this in just a moment. And now we're going to move on with looking for any hidden directories or files up on this web server using dirb. So now that we know that the secret directory up on the web server is of interest to us, we're going to go ahead and use dirb, which is a web content scanner. And it's going to look for any more hidden or present web objects up there on that server for us. So I've typed in dirb space the IP address of the web server. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and now it's going to conduct that scan. So after just 2 quick scans, one using Nikto and the other one using dirb, we were able to discover that there was a secret directory up on the web server, and we were told that it might be of interest. So we used dirb to drill down and get some more information. And we found out some good stuff here, such as, number 1, this is a WordPress site. And we now have the location for the WordPress admin login page. We can also see the WordPress content, and we can see some other things all related to this being a WordPress site. So using my Kali browser, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to access this web page that's running on this WordPress site. Now, it says it works, and that's great, but I don't believe that's the actual web page we want. So I'm going to do a forward select. I'm going to type in secret, and let's see what happens here. And then we get the secret page, and there's a couple of items on here. One says skip to content, and this is my secret blog, and it says it's just another WordPress site. Let's see what's over here. We have the login page. Well, I happen to know a little bit of something about the default login for a WordPress site. We can go ahead and try to log in and see if we can just use admin and admin. Now, this is out of the box. So when you install or you create a WordPress site for the first time, the default username and password is admin. A lot of people, especially web developers and the such, are too lazy, or they just don't know that they need to change the default username and password for their WordPress site. So what we're looking at here is actually washed out. It's not really the WordPress site. We don't see a theme. We don't see anything. So we know that we're going to have to use a trick, which is add the domain name to the path for this particular web server. Going back over to our Nikto scan, we find that there is a domain name assigned to this particular web server, and it is VTCSec. Alright, so we've got some good information here. So let's go ahead and add to our host file the path over to the secret website using its domain name. Let's see how we do that. I'm going to add an entry to my host file for resolving the IP address of 192.168.0.32 to the domain name of VTCSec. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now that command prompt came back letting me know that the command completed successfully. So now we're going to bring back up our browser, and we're just going to refresh the secret page. And we see now that we have the theme for the WordPress site. And this is what you should be seeing if you log on to an actual WordPress site. You shouldn't be seeing that washed out white background with the text. And if you see that, then you know that you're not resolving it the correct way using the domain name. So again, let's go after some of that low-hanging fruit, and let's just scroll on down inside of here and see what we have. We have the login page. So I want this login page because I want to just test to see if my hunch is right. So I'm going to go ahead and type in admin, and then I'm going to tab on down, and I'm going to type in admin, and I'm going to hit enter. And lo and behold, we get access to the dashboard. As administrator for this WordPress site, we have the complete run of this web server now. Though we were able to guess the login for the WordPress site using admin and admin as the username and password, there is an easier way for us to not have to guess and perform a scan. Now we can use the WP scan utility to enumerate and find out what the username is for the WordPress site, and then we can carry on and do a dictionary attack and find the password. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. I've typed in WP scan space -u, which stands for the URL. I've typed in the URL, and then we give it a space -- enumerate and a space -u. U stands for users. So I want to enumerate the users using this particular scan. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. In just a moment we'll come back and it'll give us some good. My scan has completed, and it lets me know that the default first WordPress username admin is still used. Now let's go ahead and see if we can figure out the default password. For this scan, we're going to again use the WP scanner, and I've typed in the same information as before. On this time I told it that I want to use a word list, and this is where the word list is located, and I want at least 2 threads ran on this particular scan. Now what I'm going to do here is go ahead and hit enter. In just a moment it's going to come back and it's going to find me the password that goes along with that admin username. And down here at the bottom you can see it doing a brute force attack against the username admin. So our WP scan has completed for the brute force attack against the target, and we see that we come back with some information here about the default username of admin and the password being admin. So you see how we used this utility to perform that brute force attack, not only to give us the username, but also to give us the password for that user. This is going to conclude part 1 of this walkthrough for basic pen testing. In part 2, we're going to get more involved with the vulnerability analysis, and then we'll get into the exploitation. I'll see you in part 2. Greetings and welcome to part 2 of our basic pen testing walkthrough. So we're going to get busy now with a vulnerability analysis, and once we're done with that, we'll get into the actual attacking or the exploitation of our target. In our last video you saw how easy it was to get root access to that WordPress site as administrator, allowing us to upload, download, do whatever we wanted to with that WordPress site. We're going to continue on now and look for some more exploitations that we can use here. And we're going to start off with that FTP server that we found with our Nmap scan. So one tool that we can use to help us find that exploit that'll take us to the next level is called searchsploit. So I've typed in searchsploit space the name of the utility. In this case it's the Pro FTPD server running software version 1.3.3.c. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and see what it comes up with here. And it came up with a couple of exploits that we can run using our Metasploitable installation. So let's go ahead and see how this is going to work. Searchsploit has come back with a couple of backdoor exploits that we can run, and we're going to come back to this later. Right now we're also going to search for something that might be useful against OpenSSH, and we're going to search for that in just a moment. So we found a couple of exploits up there for the Pro FTPD server, and now we're going to move on and we're going to look to see if there's anything available for the OpenSSH version 7.2 P2. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it comes back and there are a couple of exploits that we can run. Now since we're most likely to get a shell for the root access for this particular target using the exploit for FTP and or HTTP, we're going to go ahead and again we're going to start with that low-hanging fruit, and we're going to start off with trying to exploit our server with the FTP exploit. We can go ahead and clear our screen here, and now we're going to launch the MSF console. And we're going to search for that exploit that we can use against the Pro FTPD server. So Metasploit is opened up for us, and now we're going to type in search Pro FTPD space the version number we're looking for, and that is 1.3.3c. And we'll see if Metasploit can hand us off something here. So our search results have came back and we found exactly what we're looking for here, which is the exploit /Unix/FTP/ProFTPD_133C backdoor. This is rated as excellent, and that's what we want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to highlight that and we're going to copy it like that. Then we're going to use the use command to pull this up. I'm just going to right click and paste, and now you'll see that my prompt changes to let me know that we are now using that exploit. To find out what options you have to configure, you can use the show options command. So I'm going to type in show options, and you'll see that we have to set the remote host IP address. So it says our host is required, yes, and that is the target IP address. That's all we have to set here. So I'm going to type in set and along with the IP address of the target. And now we're ready to go ahead and configure that one option. And it comes back and let me know that the rhost option has been configured. We're now ready to launch this exploit. And to do that, I'm going to use the exploit command. In just a moment, it should come back letting me know that we have a backdoor. Now we won't be able to see the prompt. And that is why you see this blinking cursor down here. So we're going to have to elevate ourselves just a little bit. And we're going to see how we do that. So it says the command shell session 1 opened up on between 192.168.0.30, which is my Kali machine, and the target. So we have this command prompt down here, but we can't do much with it. So let's just go ahead and use a little bit of Python code to help elevate ourselves just a little bit more. So with the use of a little bit of Python code, we can tell the server to give us a bash shell. So I've had to copy off my Python code into a text file so that I can get to the actual characters that I need to run this. Now you see that there's a difference between what I'm typing in here. There we go. So if you have a problem with that Python code, you're going to have to first copy and paste it into a text file and then ensure that it is properly configured correctly and then input it into the prompt, and that'll work. It doesn't take it very well from the lab file. So now we have root access over to the server that was our target. So we've accomplished our mission here. So we can type in a couple of different things. We can type in, for instance, who am I? And it says that we are root. And that's all we need to know. All right, so that's going to conclude part 2 of this video on how do we go about performing a walkthrough. That's going to conclude part 2 of our walkthrough for the basic pen testing vulnerability exercise. Now, if you have any questions or concerns about any of the material or any of the content that was covered in this video or the lab, please do not hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor, and I'll see you in my next video. Greetings, and in this short video presentation we're going to do a video walkthrough for the capture the flag exercise known as derp and stink. The goal of this capture the flag is to find 4 different flags and gain root access. There are multiple vectors that can be used, but not all of them are going to be shown for this particular walkthrough. I have researched this particular capture the flag, and I think I have found what I consider to be the best vectors. Hardware requirements consist of 1 virtual install on VirtualBox or VMware Player or Workstation Pro, 1 install of Kali Linux, and 1 virtual install of the derp and stink OVA file, which can be loaded from the lab, or you can go to VulnHub and download it from there. As with any pen test, organization is very important, so we're going to start off by creating our organizational folder up on the desktop here. We're going to call it derp and stink. Once we've got that organizational folder created, we're going to take our terminal and we're going to change location, and we're going to work inside of this organizational container to make sure that everything we do is saved to this one location. First thing I want to do is get that information about my network IP address. So I'm going to go ahead and do an ifconfig on my Kali machine. And we see that I'm running on network 192.168.0. My IP address for my Kali machine is .30. We're going to go ahead and clear the terminal. And now we're going to do a net discover. At my terminal prompt, I've typed in nets discover space -R. -R is just the switch that net discover uses to indicate the range. In this case, the range is going to be 192.168.0.0. And we're going to back that off just a little bit, give it a / and then a 24. So I'm telling it I want you to scan that last octet, and I want you to give me all the IP addresses that are available on this network. Go ahead and hit enter, and in just a moment it's going to come back and give me some results. The target IP address for this particular capture the flag machine is going to be .27. So we're going to go ahead and make a note of that. We're now ready to enumerate our target and find out what ports and services are running, and we want to get some information about the operating system as well. So I'm going to do my nmap scan. I've typed in nmap space -s, capital S, give it a space, -AT4 space, the IP address of the target. Go ahead and hit enter, and in just a moment it's going to come back and give me some good results. The nmap scan has completed, and it comes back and it gives me 3 different ports running 3 different services that I could use as vectors for this particular pen test. The first one is port 21 running FTP, and it's running the very secure FTPD server using version 3.0.2. We also have SSH using OpenSSH version 6.6 1P1. We're also running this on Ubuntu, and we got some information about the kernel down here that we might be able to use if we need to. We're ready to move on to the vulnerability analysis, and to do this I'm going to start off by using Searchsploit to see if I can find any well-known exploits that might be available for one of these 3 vectors that I have discovered with my nmap scan. So we're going to start off by looking for something that might be available for the very secure FTPD service 3.0.2, and it comes back and it says there's nothing there. Moving on over to the SSH, we're going to go ahead and try to log on as root and see what pops up here. And it says this requires the use of a key. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And it says permission denied. I need a public key. So we're not going to get on there anytime soon. Time to take a look at HTTP and see if we got anything cooking over there. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up a browser and take a visit to the Apache web server, and we're going to bring up that index page and see if there's anything there that can be of use. Visiting the web server just pulls up a page with an image on it. There's no links. There's nothing of real use. So we're going to try to go ahead and see if we can view the source here, view the page source, and see what this brings up. Now, oftentimes we can find little bits of information in here left over by the developer, maybe a bit of information about a password or a username or something. We're going to go ahead and scroll through the whole text, and we find a key. So we got our first key right here. You just have to scroll down and look for it. So make sure that when you're viewing this source that you look at everything. We can now move on over to the robust.txt file. Oftentimes we'll get some good stuff in here, and we can also look at the page source in here if you like. See if there's anything, but there's nothing in here. Remember to enumerate everything. Now we're going to take a look at this temporary page, and then we'll take a look at the PHP. Well, the temporary page just tells us to try harder. So we're going to take a look at that PHP, see what this got to offer. Access to the PHP is forbidden. We'll come back to that later on. We can now do a scan for some hidden files and other web content up on the HTTP server, and we're going to use derb for this little ditty. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. So what we found out using the derp scan was that this is actually a WordPress site, and we have an admin login, and that the weblog directory is where this WordPress site is being contained. So we're going to take a trip on up to the weblog and see if we can find out anything interesting. A couple things happen when we try to visit the weblog page. First off, it will try to redirect you to a domain, but you're not going to be able to find it unless you modify your host file. So we're going to minimize this. Now what happens is the IP address needs to resolve to the host name. So to do this, you've got to go up inside of your terminal and you've got to modify your host file to include the domain name along with the IP address. With the inclusion of the domain name in our host file, we are able to resolve the IP address correctly, and we get this default web page. Not a lot going on in here. You can go ahead and view the source. Won't tell you anything, but it's always a good idea to check and make sure that there's nothing hidden in here that can give us a password or a user account or something that might be useful. So we can move on to doing a WordPress scan, and we typed all the information in here we need. The -u means the URL, which we've typed in, to include the page that we want to, or the directory we want to enumerate, in this case weblog, and we want to look at the users. We're looking for users up inside of this particular website, and we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and the scan begins. Here again you see where the website is being redirected, and if we don't have that domain name up inside of our host file, then it's not going to resolve correctly. So the WordPress scan has completed, and we've found a couple of interesting things here. One, we got a vulnerable plugin, and we're going to run that up inside of SearchSploit in just a second. And if we scroll down, we were able to enumerate a couple of usernames, and one of them was Uncle Stinky and the other one was admin. So this is the admin for the WordPress site, and Uncle Stinky is also a user. The other thing we note here is that the default for the WordPress site is set to admin, and the password is set to admin. So we know about the slideshow gallery plugin being vulnerable, so we're hoping that SearchSploit will hand us over some exploits that we can use to go ahead and further use that as a vector to gain root access. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter. So it comes back and it gives us a list of all the exploits that are available. Now for this particular vector, we're going to be using Metasploit. So at my prompt, I've typed in MSF console. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now when this starts up, we're then going to do another search for the slideshow gallery, and we'll see if we come up with an exploit up inside of it, the MSF console. Metasploit has opened up, and I'm now ready to conduct that search for the exploit that can align with the slideshow gallery. So I'm going to do a search, and in just a moment we'll see if we get any good results. We found the exploit that we want to use, and we see that its ranking is excellent, and it tells us exactly what this is going to be used for. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and copy this like so, and then I'm going to bring up my prompt. What I'm going to do now is just type in clear, and we're going to type in the use command, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste the name of that exploit, and I'm going to hit enter. You'll notice that my prompt changes to let me know that the command completed successfully. Now the next thing we got to do is set some options. So let's go ahead and just do a show options to see what we have to set here. So we've got to set the remote host. We've got to set the remote port, but that's already been done for us. We got to set the target URI, and we have to have a WordPress password and a WordPress user for this particular exploit. So let's go ahead and get busy with that. So I'm going to type in set our host. So I've typed in the IP address for the remote host. I'm going to hit enter. That's been set. Now we're going to move on to setting the target URI. This is the directory where the WordPress site resides. Type that in. I'm going to hit enter. Using the information that we gathered from our WordPress scan, we know that the user is admin and that the password for this user is also admin. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. So the last thing I have to type in is that password using the set command this time, and that took as well. Now we're ready to run the exploit. I'm going to hit enter. Now I could have logged on to the WordPress site as admin, uploaded a PHP script, and then started a listener using Netcat, and I could have established a shell. But anytime that you can establish a metapreter prompt, that's always going to be better than a limited shell, because now we can go ahead and escalate this up to a bash, and then hopefully we can get root access this way. So I've typed in sysinfo. I've got some information about the computer's name, the OS version, and some other information. Now I'm ready to go ahead and get up inside of that weblog directory. To do this, I'm going to change location using the cd command. I'm going to move on over to the var, the www folder, up inside the HTML folder, and finally into the weblog directory. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. To show that I am inside of the weblog directory, I'm going to go ahead and type in an ls command and list the contents, and you can see everything that we have in here. One of the things you can count on is that there will be a wp.config.php file up inside of your WordPress site. This is going to contain the information for the users and the name of the database and that user password that has access to that particular database. So we want to go ahead and look inside and read the contents of this particular file. Using the cat command, we're going to go ahead and view the contents of this particular file right here from the terminal. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And if we scroll down a little bit, or scroll up in this case, we get some information about the name of the database. We also find out that the default user account for this particular database is root. And we also have the database password, which is MySQL. We're still enumerating, so we're going to go back up inside of the home directory, and we're going to take a look at what might be present there. So I'm going to type in cd/home and hit enter. That lets me know that we are now inside of the home directory. I'll do an ls, list of contents, and we see that we have two directories in here. One is named mrderp and the other one is stinky. If we try to access either of those directories, we're going to get an access is denied. Time to go around the other direction, so we're going to try to log on to the PHP MyAdmin site and see if we can get some access and find out some information about the default users and their user passwords. Use that information that we found using that wp-config.php file. We know that the username was root and the password was MySQL. We're going to go ahead and attempt to log on here, and we have. And if we open up the WordPress site over here on the left and we scroll on down, we want to look at the users. And we see that there's two users in here. There's Uncle Stinky and there's admin. And their user passwords have been hashed quite well. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult, but it can be done. We're now going to use John the Ripper to go ahead and crack these two hashes. What we're going to use is a text file that we're going to put these in, and then we're going to give a word list to John the Ripper that it's going to use and try to figure out the passwords for these two user accounts. Let's see how that gets done. So back to the desktop, we're just going to open up a text editor. We can use the one that's inside of the application quick launch. And we're going to copy in those two hashes. When that's done, we're going to save it as a hash.txt file, and then we're going to place it inside of our working directory. Here's my hash.txt file, and if we open it up, you'll see that we have two hashes inside of there. They're both listed, and again, the name of the file is hash.txt. Now the next thing you're going to have to do is probably travel on over to where the word lists are actually kept. And to do this, you're going to open up your File Explorer. You're going to go to Other Locations, click on Computer. You're going to go to USSR or USR, go to Share. Then you scroll on down to Word List. You'll open up the Word List directory. Inside here, you're going to find this particular archive. You're going to right-click on it, and you're going to go ahead and extract it here. If that doesn't work, just double-click it, open it up, and then say Extract, and then let it extract here. And you just click on Extract, and you're all done. So the next thing we want to do is open up a new terminal. To do that, we're just going to right-click on the terminal icon, go to New Window, and then we're going to change directory over to our working folder. From the prompt up inside of my working folder where I have the hash.txt file sitting and waiting, I'm going to type in John space hash.txt, And then I'm going to type in the following command: -- word list equals the path to the word list and the name of that word list. And then I'm going to hit enter. And since I've already used John the Ripper to crack those 2 hashes, it keeps that information stored up inside of its configuration, so I won't be able to run that particular crack again. Now you're going to be able to see this in action when you run it for the first time, and you have to be patient because it's going to take a while. Alright, well, that's going to conclude part 1 of the derp and stink walkthrough, and when I return, we're going to continue on where we left off right here, and I'll see you in part 2 of this video series.